I tend to be a pessimist regarding most things, but that's no surprise given the world we live in. From the constant mass shootings to the never-ending wars to the climate crisis, it's no surprise that I tend to see the glass as half empty. Therefore, I often surprise myself at how hopeful I am about the future of humanity. Our future is the only thing I'm optimistic, even excited about. Yes, the world seems like a terrible place right now, but I can't help but feel like we're on the brink of a revolution. Maybe I'm naive, or I have to be excited about the future in order to keep moving forward. But I think it's more than that. I genuinely think we're on the cusp of a change the likes of which we have never seen before. I believe we are about to enter a new age of humanity, a second digital age that will change the world as we know it. Whenever I feel less optimistic about our future or feel like we've come to sort of a standstill regarding technology, I remember just how far we have come. My favorite example to think about is innovation in aviation. The first plane took flight in 1903, which in itself is an incredible feat. But just 70 years later, we were able to put men on the moon. Just think about that for a second. In just 70 years, we went from the first plane taking off to landing on the moon. We were capable of creating an airplane, and then just 70 years later, making an airplane capable of carrying people off of this planet and onto the moon. Thinking about that never fails to blow my mind. 70 years isn't even that long. It's basically just one lifetime. Someone born in the early 1900s could have experienced both the first plane taking off and the first rocket taking off. Sometimes I find myself wishing that I had experienced such great technological innovation in my own lifetime. But then I remember I already have. I was born in the early 2000s, one of the greatest eras for technological innovation. I only need to look around my house for evidence of the technological breakthrough of the early 2000s. In my garage, I have a box full of VHS tapes that I used as a kid. I have a cabinet full of DVDs that were needed for me to watch movies, but have now gone completely to waste, since no one could have predicted the rise of streaming services such as Netflix and Amazon Prime. In fact, back in 2000, Netflix tried to sell itself to Blockbuster for just $15 million. But Blockbuster brushed it off as a joke. Since Blockbuster was a huge company, at its height having about 9,000 stores, and Netflix was just a small startup going through hard times. Fast forward 20 years, and now Blockbuster has declared bankruptcy. And Netflix is worth about $125 billion, nearly 2,500 times more than it was offered to sell for back in 2000. Even the greats at Blockbuster management couldn't have predicted how far technology has come. I even remember listening to fables in my dad's car that we had to play on cassette tapes, which seem like ancient history now. I was recently going through old photos, and I came across a picture of the TV I had growing up. It was this big, bulky box with a DVD and VHS player resting on top of it. It literally looks like it came out of another century. This TV looks like it belongs in a museum. But this picture was taken in 2009, just 10 years ago. The majority of us have lived through one of the greatest technological breakthroughs ever. But it's easy to forget since we've grown so accustomed to all this new technology. I can't even imagine my life without my iPhone, my MacBook, or Netflix. But all these innovations have only been around for the past 10 to 20 years. We have lived through one of the greatest times for technological innovation yet. But we have reason to believe the age to come will make what we have experienced look like child's play. This next age can be summarized by one system, the Internet of Things, or IoT, where everything we use, from toothbrushes to clothing to even beehives, will contain computers, revolutionizing our ability to collect, analyze, and store information. According to The Economist, the IoT aims to do for information what electricity did for energy. The IoT is basically a system of interconnected devices that communicate with each other in order to maximize convenience for the user. For example, let's say my school starts at 7:45, and I have to leave my house at 7:30 in order to get there on time. So I set my alarm for 7 a.m. so that I have enough time to get ready. But let's say one day there's increased traffic on my way to school that would have made me late if I left on my normal 7:30. An alarm clock connected to the IoT would know that there was traffic on my normal route and make my alarm earlier so that I wouldn't be late to school. Given the capabilities of a world this interconnected, it isn't hard to imagine its impacts on our day-to-day lives. From self-driving cars that communicate with each other, to clothing embedded with chips that tell a washing machine how it needs to be washed. The possibilities are endless. This isn't just some far-fetched dream, or something about science fiction, but it has already started. The foundations for the IoT are being laid as we speak. My dad was recently telling me a story about how on his trip to Chicago about 2 years ago, he put a reminder on Google Calendar for his flight time back to Florida, and planned to leave his house according to that flight time. However, what he didn't know was that there was a traffic accident on the way to the airport that would have made him miss his flight. Luckily, since Google Calendar and Google Maps are both Google devices and therefore interconnected, using data from Google Maps, Google Calendar was able to notify my dad to leave earlier so that he wouldn't miss his flight. This is an example of how the foundations of the IoT are already in place, and this was 2 years ago. Technology has come a long way in even the past 2 years. A more recent example of the applications of the IoT occurred this year on August 29th, as Hurricane Dorian approached the east coast of the United States. Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla, announced that all battery-powered Tesla cars in the storm's path now had the ability to drive farther on a single battery charge by enabling parts of the battery that had been disabled in order to limit range. Tesla was able to remotely modify its cars through the internet without the need for a local mechanic in order to respond to an incoming crisis. This is the future the IoT promises. The IoT isn't just a developed world system, but promises to improve lives globally in both developed and developing nations. Within developing nations, the IoT has the potential to foster economic growth and save countless lives. Due to poor infrastructure and concentrated populations, developing countries are disproportionately exposed to risks of natural disasters. And therefore, according to the World Bank, 95% of all deaths from natural disasters occur in developing countries. IoT devices have the potential to mitigate these damages by ensuring people are better prepared for disasters by giving them earlier warnings. For example, sensors attached to trees can measure risk factors associated with forest fires, such as temperature, moisture, carbon dioxide, and carbon monoxide levels. When these factors reach levels indicative of a forest fire, the sensors can warn local populations so that they have time to evacuate and call for help, ensuring that resources are ready when fire does break out. Another such system is the Indian Ocean Tsunami Warning System that was created after the 2004 tsunami that devastated coastal areas of India, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and Indonesia, and killed over 220,000 people. This system uses kinetic sensors on the ocean floor that measure water flow and waves. These sensors then send information to buoys floating on the ocean surface, and then send this information to local governments via satellite, so that local governments have the time to evacuate local people and mobilize resources. Systems like these have the ability to drastically decrease the deaths from natural disasters as well as property damage, and revolutionize the way the global community responds to crises. Right now is the perfect time for the IoT to take the world by storm. Over the past 50 years, the foundations for the IoT have already been laid. This graph shows the dramatic decrease in disk drive prices, transistor prices, and the speed it takes to download 1 megabyte of data since each of these innovations were introduced. The price of microchips have also decreased drastically, while computational power has increased dramatically, creating the smallest but most powerful computers the world has ever seen. The digital age of the early 2000s was just a precursor, setting in place all the infrastructure needed for the IoT to be born. The invention of laptops, computers, the internet, the smartphone, and every other recent innovation has only set the stage for the most recent innovation to come, the IoT. I am optimistic about the future, but not blindly optimistic. I know there will be challenges in implementing the IoT, as there always is with new technology. But if we are to take any lessons from history, the change is coming, whether we like it or not. In 2016, there were 4.7 billion devices connected to the IoT. In 2021, this number is expected to increase to about 11.6 billion devices. And in 2025, this number is expected to increase even further to about 21 billion devices. The IoT is inevitable, so we must overcome the challenges that come with it. There's no other option. The main concerns regarding the IoT will be privacy and security concerns. A web of interconnected devices all connected to the cloud seem like a hacker's dream. Also, through the IoT, tons of data would be collected about the users, on everything about them, from their daily patterns to their interests. And regulation must be put in place regarding how companies use this data, and many legal battles will be fought. Another huge challenge of the IoT will be job loss. Machines have already taken tons of jobs, and with the proliferation of the internet, this will only get worse. The automation of the digital age allows for increased productivity while needing even fewer employees, so those out of work have even fewer jobs to go to. In fact, the first decade of the 21st century was the first time that the total number of jobs in the US didn't increase. And with the IoT, even more jobs will be taken by machines better equipped for these jobs. And productivity will continue to increase while needing even fewer employees. So a mass restructuring of society will be needed in order to retrain those out of jobs and create new jobs that are capable of adapting to new innovation. Despite all of these challenges, I'm still hopeful. I believe in humanity. Like I said, we went from building the first airplane to landing men on the moon in just 70 years. As a species, we have been faced with challenge after challenge, but have always managed to pull through and make the world a better place. I believe if we overcome the challenges that come with the IoT, the benefits we reap will be incredible. If done right, the IoT promises to be the greatest technological breakthrough yet, catapulting us into a new age of humanity. And like I said, I'm optimistic and believe we will build this exciting new future together. Thank you.